Hi guys, welcome back to my channel Lush Foliage. In today's video, we are going to be talking about this absolutely beautiful house plant called as the Monstera Thai Constellation. Now before we get into the care tips of this plant, let's talk about the plant itself because I was quite curious to know where does this plant originate from. Now of course, this is a lab product. You won't find this plant growing out in wild. Now, when I was searching for the information, there were two stories related to it. One saying that this plant was created in a lab in Thailand, whereas the other article said that this is a hybrid between Monstera delicioso and Epipernum pinnatum albo. I think the second story doesn't seem that convincing. The first one, which is it has been made in the lab, sounds more convincing because around the world they have been creating a lot of Monstera hybrids. As you might have seen, there are a lot of new varieties that have come up in the market. The old ones were Thai Constellation, Monstera albo, Monstera half moon, Monstera aurea, Monstera mint. Variegated mint is the one that had recently come out probably last year, and now there is another one that has come up in the market which is very expensive, called as Monstera devil monster. As I checked for the price, it said that it was sold for around $40,000. Yes, $40,000. That is insane. But then that's how it is. Whenever there is a new plant that comes out in the market, everyone wants to get their hands on it. It's like the first edition. So yes, that was sold for almost $40,000. But I think in future the prices will definitely drop because the Thai Constellation back in 2020 was very expensive. I would say it almost costed a regular person's monthly income or probably more, including the albo as well, because in 2020 the demand for this was very high and the supply was very low, due to which the prices had skyrocketed. But anyways, now this plant is online or even in nurseries, and it is not that expensive. It is quite affordable at this point of time, and that's all thanks to tissue culture. We were able to get these wish list plants at a affordable rate. Now let's talk a little bit in detail about the care tips, starting off with light, because light is the most important thing. The only reason we are buying this plant is because of the variegation. So you have to offer a good amount of indirect bright light, which has a good amount of intensity. Unlike the Monstera delicioso, which you can keep it indoor even in less light, this will definitely start to fade off the variegation if it doesn't get a good amount of light. Apart from that, the feeding as well. We tend to use fertilizers only during the summers, no fertilizers during the winter season. Fertilizers, you also have to check that the nitrogen macronutrient is a little bit less as compared to the other two. Because nitrogen is one of the macronutrient that tends to give the green color to the plant. So you want to avoid anything that is going to turn the plant green in color. So you have to offer a good amount of indirect bright light, probably early morning before 10 a.m. Mild direct sunlight is okay if the plant is mature, and ensure you are feeding the plant with a nutrient that is low in nitrogen. Now let's talk about the soil mix, which again is very important. All of the Monsteras prefer a loose, porous, well-draining soil mix, yet something that retains a slight amount of moisture but not soggy wet soil. Now again, in soil you have two options. Some people grow their Monsteras in soilless media, whereas some people tend to grow it in regular potting mix, which I do because it's more economical rather than growing it in a soilless media. The reason is because in soilless media you have to buy each and every ingredient, whether it is leca, coconut chips, cocoa peat, pumice, perlite, sphagnum moss. So all of these things have to be purchased. so it is going to be quite expensive, especially if you have a lot of plants. For me, as you'll all know, I go ahead and collect the garden soil from roadside, the sand from the construction side. So this is very economical for me to use a regular potting mix. The only thing that I have to pay money is for the coco peat. Other than that, my potting mix is almost for free of cost, and that money I can use for buying more plants. I wouldn't want to spend money on each and every ingredient to make the soilless media. But let's say that even if we keep the money part out of the scenario, it is still not a very good idea, especially for people who are from a very dry environment, including myself. The soilless media is not going to work out really well. Soilless media tends to work out really well for people who are from a very high humid environment, or for people who are growing their plants indoor. It tends to work out really well. But for people with a humidity level that is almost 20%, 30%, the soilless media is definitely not going to work out. If you want to do it, then you'll have to probably keep on misting the plant, or you'll have to water probably twice in a day, because the soilless media in a dry environment outdoors is not going to be a very good idea. So I don't want to get into it. It's better I stick with my regular potting mix, which tends to work out really well. It retains the slight amount of moisture, works very well with my environment, so I do not want to change that. So talking about watering, the soil has to be slightly moist, as I said. So the moment you notice 1 to 2 inches of the upper layer of soil is dry, go ahead and do a complete watering until the water starts passing through the drain hole. They do not like to be sitting in dry soil for a very long time. Otherwise, your plant will end up with brown leaves or with crispy leaves. So you have to be extremely careful. Remember, these plants are tropical plants. They prefer a warm environment and a good amount of humidity. Average humidity of anything above 60% is going to work out really well. Along with that, you have to do a daily misting. This is what I do. Every afternoon, I have to do a light mist because my environment is dry, as I mentioned this earlier. So misting is very, very important. You don't need a humidifier, especially for this plant. As I said, average humidity is absolutely fine. Whether you are growing it indoor or whether you are growing it outdoor, but ensure you are doing a light mist, especially if you are from a very dry environment. Now, talking about propagation, it is very simple to propagate your Monstera. Now, of course, this plant does not have any nodes yet because this is a very young plant, but as and when the nodes appear, couple of centimeters below the node, you can go ahead and do a cutting, and that's more than enough. Just like how we tend to do a propagation or stem cutting on our philodendrons or on pothos, it is the same method what you will have to do on a Monstera. But again, only when the plant is mature you will be able to find the nodes. In a young plant like this, nodes are not going to be present. Now, talking about temperature and humidity, these are tropical plants. They prefer a warm environment. Anything between 15 degrees Celsius up to 35-36 degrees Celsius will do quite well. If the plant is mature, it can even handle higher temperature as well. But definitely, it cannot handle low temperature or very high temperature. So if you belong to an environment wherein you experience frost, or if you are from an environment wherein the temperatures are very high during summers, then of course you'll have to get the plant indoor and keep it indoor until the environment outdoor gets better or gets stable. Extreme temperatures will not do quite well with this plant. Now, talking about pest issues, yes, this plant does get affected with mealybugs and spider mites. So always do a routine check. Turn the leaves and check if you find any kind of spider mites. If you notice even one bug, get rid of it at the earliest stage. Do not wait for the last minute, because if the plant gets completely infested with any kind of pest, then it is very difficult to recover the plant out of it. So always do a visual check. Now, talking about, is this plant toxic? Yes, the leaves of Monstera are toxic. So ensure you keep this plant away from the reach of small children and pets. If the leaves are ingested, it could lead to trouble. So ensure you're keeping this plant away from the reach. So that's about it. If you are planning to get this Monstera, do add it in your collection because it is quite easy. Just like the regular Monstera, very easy, The only thing that you have to keep in mind is to offer a good amount of light, whether it's in the form of filtered light or dappled sunlight or indirect bright light, whatever you can offer it, because only then you will be able that beautiful variegation. If you are going to throw this plant in a dark room or in a low light condition, then of course the plant will start to revert to green in color. The variegation will start to fade off, and always remember guys, once the plant starts to revert back to green in color, it is very difficult to get the variegation back. At times it does come back, at times it doesn't, and the plant completely revert back to green in color. So you have to be extremely careful. I am very sure the only reason that you're purchasing this plant is because of the variegation. So you have to offer it a good amount of light. Now talking about those fenestrations that you see on the plant, now this comes on the plant as per the age. As and when the plant starts to mature, the fenestrations will also increase on the plant, but again you have to offer a good amount of light. In less light, one, the variegation will go missing. Secondly, the fenestrations are not going to show up if there is less light. The variegation and the fenestration tend to make this plant absolutely beautiful. So you want to try and give a good amount of light in order for the plant to look presentable. So that's about it. I hope that you liked this video. If you did, please hit the like button, and if you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing to it. Until then, take care, stay safe, and keep planting.